just wanted to share with you a question that I get occasionally from parents. The question is, how can I help my children when they're afraid? And so, over the years, I've heard different things that people will tell their children when they're afraid. It's funny. I've got family members who will tell their kids, if you don't go back to bed, I'll give you something to be afraid of, So you try to scare them out of being scared. Other times we just try to reassure them that they're actually safe. If they're afraid of bad weather or storms, you say, "Oh, we're fine because the odds are that we're not going to get struck by lightning." You try to reason with them that what they're afraid of is actually not something to be afraid of. Those things are all fine, but when our kids are afraid, whether they're afraid of the dark or they're afraid of bullies or they're afraid of bad weather, these are always opportunities to teach them things about the Lord. And so what I recommend teaching your children when they're afraid is something that can actually help adults when they're afraid. Whether you're afraid of a situation that's going on at work, or you've got anxiety about finances or anything, this could help not just children but any adult in any situation. And so the first thing that I would teach the child is that the Bible teaches us to deal with fear by putting off fearful thoughts. So it's almost like taking off a hat. So we take off the bad thoughts and we put on biblical thoughts in their place. So if you go to church here at Providence, you know that we talk about putting off and putting on quite a bit. So we teach our children to you stop thinking about what you're afraid of and instead think about something good. Most beneficially, think about God, and there are certain attributes of God that when we put them together, they tend to destroy fear. So you could tell your kids, we need to take off the bad thoughts, and we need to put on the good thoughts, and the good thoughts are thoughts about the Lord our God. And there are three things about Him that can help us when we are afraid. So the things about God that we want to think about is, first of all, we want to think about the fact that He is sovereign, which means that He's all powerful and He's in control of everything. And it would be good to tell them a Bible story that demonstrates the sovereignty of God, the power of God. Like you could talk about God parting the Red Sea, and just how amazing that was and how powerfully God did that. Then a second attribute is God's goodness, and that picture of the Exodus is also a good picture of God's goodness. That He used His power for the good of His people. So God is not just powerful, but He uses His power for those that He loves, His people. So then we've got God's power, we've got His goodness. Then we also want to think about God, that He is wise. And so you can also tell a Bible story about God's wisdom that demonstrates that He always does things in the best way. And that's a good way to describe wisdom to kids. God does the right thing in the best way possible. So when we're afraid, we need to stop thinking about the thing that we're afraid of and instead think about the fact that He is sovereign, that He is good, and that He is wise. That means that He can help me, He wants to help me, and He will always help me in the best way possible. And His way of helping me is always going to be better than the way that I want Him to help me. Sometimes God wants to help us in ways that are different than the way we want Him to help us, but His ways are always better than ours. So you can see how that would help a child to have something visible, mentally visible, to think about God, these Bible stories that demonstrate His sovereignty, His goodness, and His wisdom. But it's also obvious how those would help adults as well, because we can think those things too. We stop thinking about the thing that we're afraid of, and we think about these wonderful truths about God, that He's powerful, that He always uses His power for our good, and He does that in the best way possible. He's sovereign, He's good, He's wise. Before I finish this video, I just want to mention, if you have ever watched one of these videos on Periscope, you know that if you touch the screen, these hearts appear. And so some people have accidentally touched the screen while watching one of these videos. The heart appears, and they're afraid that that means they've just expressed some kind of unhealthy devotion to me personally. Getting hearts on the screen by touching the screen, that doesn't mean that you love me. It means that you like the video, and the more hearts a video gets, the more exposure that video gets on Periscope. So if you like the video, you can give it a heart, and you can give it a whole bunch of hearts. You can give it no hearts, whatever. But however many hearts a video gets, it's going to get more exposure on Periscope, and so that's good for the gospel, right? So if you have any questions that you'd like to see answered on a video like this one, you can email me, text me, tweet me, however you want to get in contact, and I will do my best to get it answered. Love you all, and I'll see you soon.